My name is David Blake, and I'm with M&R Print Equipment from the U.S., and I manage the international sales department. My job has given me the privilege of being in about 70 countries selling equipment. Prior to this, I was with a textile ink company as well. So I've spent most of the last 30 years traveling around the globe in the textile screen print world. I've got a couple friends of mine who are also world travelers and manufacturers that are going to join me up here. And I don't have necessarily a PowerPoint presentation. My idea was to make this more of a discussion and a little bit interactive. If you'd like to ask questions, feel free to do so. The topic today is about the trends that I see in the textile market. And you know, when we think about trends, typically we think about fashion and what that means, but there's so many trends related to textile manufacturing that are not part of the fashion side. For example, on the supply chain side, when I was printing many years ago, I would get orders and my lead time would be 4 to 5 months for delivery, and we would have 3 seasons a year. In today's world, lead times can be as short as 4 to 5 days or 3 to 4 weeks, and you may work 6 to 8 seasons in a year. So the trend going towards retail is much faster supply chain turn, many more styles being printed for retail, and the distance that the manufacturer is to the retail buyer is shortening and shortening. So this is one of the trends that I see changing from when I was printing many years ago. Additionally, what I see is that the machine side, which is where I live in this world, is selling machines, has had to change because of the changes and the requirements for inks. When I printed decades ago, Plastisol was king, and that's what you printed with, and there were no compliance issues with Plastisol with suppliers and brands. Today, it's a completely different world. When you're printing today, you have very strict compliances for PVC, non-PVC, phthalates, and it's changed the way the printing machines have had to be made so that we can manufacture equipment that works much smoother and much more fluid with the ink requirements for today. So that's one of the things that I see as well. I get asked often what's going to happen with digital printing in textiles. At some point, is digital printing going to overtake screen printing, and we'll no longer have screen printing machines because digital will do everything? And you know, what I have seen over the last 15 years, the advance of digital printing has been tremendous. What you can do with a digital printing machine on garments today is remarkable, but I don't see it as a conflict with screen print. You know, I see digital printing more as a partner to screen print. It fits a niche that screen print doesn't do very well. It's a great short-run product, 100 pieces and less. Digital printing makes so much more sense than to make art, make separations, shoot screens, do a setup. You know, that's really something that's more acclimated towards printing over 100 pieces and much better at printing over 1,000 pieces or more. Another thing that I see as a trend is that when I was printing, for me in my factory, the standard print run I had was about 10,000 pieces of a style. And those days, except for a few manufacturers, are long gone. And we see that the average print run these days is 2,000 pieces or less. And that's, you know, again, a trend that I see that affects the way we build our machines, because at M&R, what we try to do is make machines that are easier to set up, quicker to set up, a little more functional for this short-run application. Another trend that I have seen over the last few years as I travel is that in the supply chain side of things, it used to be that the buyer also was the warehousing and distribution point for the product. And today, more and more, I see that the screen printer is also asked to be the warehouse and the distribution point to retail, which is a completely different picture than it once was. But it also means products get faster to market. So again, this is a trend that seems to be moving more and more in that direction. I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to come up now and talk a little bit. Mark Gervais, who runs one of the largest factories for printing in the world, and we were talking earlier this week about the fact that, in his business, he sees that his customers are becoming much more regionalized and wanting to put printing much closer to the retail source, as opposed to, maybe let's say printing a half a world away and shipping to a distribution center that then distributes to the local market. So, Mark, if you'd like to come up and just talk a little bit about your thoughts as well.
Sure. So, like Dave pointed out, a lot of our large customers have now asked us to create some manufacturing options for them in the countries that we would normally be shipping to. So, regional sourcing has become a little more important to them, where they would source with us directly and then we would ship to the other countries. Now we're asked to go ahead and do manufacturing in those countries, which is a little bit different shift. They want to keep it closer to the consumer. They want to have a little more quicker response to the market. They want to be able to respond to the trends and to what events or something that's happening within those specific marketplaces. Like Dave pointed out before, we used to have maybe 6 months or 8 months or 10 months on lead times. Now those are coming down to 90 days, 60 days, 45 days, and that's from development to shipment. So the window of timelines for creating these products is getting shorter. So to help with that, they're bringing the manufacturing locations into those countries. So especially in Southeast Asia, this is where we're based from. So we're starting to see some other growth into the other Southeast Asian countries in terms of their equipment or capacities or factories are starting to come up into those countries. This is just helping the brands and their whole supply chain, shortening that, quicker response, closer to the consumer, and actually providing products that the consumers are wanting in a quicker amount of time. Could be local events, they don't have the time to wait for these things to occur. They have to respond quickly on the spot. What else would you like me to talk? Yeah, well, we've seen. We've been a 100% water-based printer for a long time, and I've seen other areas of the world that are starting to embrace water-based technology. Of course, water-based technologies offer some things that plastisol inks and those type of technologies don't do. It's a little bit different dance using the water-based inks. You can see here at the show the inks are improving, the formulations are improving, which makes it easier for you as a printer to get the results that were difficult to achieve before. It's now becoming friendlier. The ink formulators are listening to us as the printers, trying to make that a little easier for you, a little more flexible, a little more forgiving. And the brands are liking the looks and the effects and the softer hand feels what we can produce with the water-based inks. And you'll see a lot of the new technologies in the hall today. Good opacity, good resolution, inks that don't dry in the screen so readily or so quickly. It makes it a lot easier for you if you're running automatic equipment to get these results at a much easier result. Automation is something that you're starting to see more of. People always used to think that in Southeast Asia that you could just put a lot of people on situations and get it taken care of, but now we're actually looking deeply at automation for anything from loading or unloading a machine to folding and packaging. We are looking at really moving that forward in terms of automation, how to linking from the time the fabric is spread, cut, printed, sewn. We're trying to stream that and make it more of an inline process rather than a big batch process. So as manufacturers, we're changing the way that we build garments to make it more inline, more mass production in an assembly line fashion rather than sending big batches of fabric out to a print shop and then bringing them back. because all handling does is add cost without value. So we're trying to eliminate all these other handling processes, becoming more automated, because labor rates only go up and up and up, and they try to jump from country to country, but there's not too many countries left to jump to. So we have to take a look at the process end to end, and add automation. You know, Dave touched a little bit earlier on the digital solution, and you'll see here at the show, I think we counted, at least six operations that are merging digital with traditional screen print. Digital can do some things, but it can't do everything, and likewise for screen printing. So you'll see more advancement in the merging of those two technologies. We will digitally print what we can and screen print what we have to, such as, you know, glitters and metallics and reflectives and some of these other inks that can be done screen print. So you're going to see a merging of these two technologies. You see it today. It's evolving. Speeds will come up. It'll become simpler to get into that. But it's going to be a complement, as Dave pointed out. Digital can get the basic image done, and screen printing is going to do other things, such as maybe screen print the pre-treatment, or screen print a discharge base, or screen print a puff under base, or do the things that the digital can't do. And we're going to see a collaboration there, and then you're going to start to see some really interesting garments coming out where you're combining the best of both technologies. And in terms of sustainability, somebody asked me to speak on sustainable screen printing once, and after I got done laughing, I said, really, I don't think we can do that. We use a lot of water in screen printing, okay, let's face it, you know, you're gonna use a lot of water in processing, even in films and other things, screens, of course, wash up. But the digital solution from a sustainability standpoint is really an ideal model. And I think, you know, a lot of the big brands talk about their sustainability story. Some actually take action upon that. But if you're looking to promote something of sustainability within your company, the digital solution is certainly one that you can sell for in terms of sustainability.
A couple more thoughts as well. When it comes to trends, there are global trends that you can kind of see through a vast array of processes, but then there's regional trends that, you know, something that happens in South America or Brazil may not have any effect in Western Europe, you know, or what happens in the States. You know, these regional trends are very specific to the area. We still print a lot of plastisol in the U.S. And when we go to Southeast Asia, we don't even see plastisol. So, you know, there's a lot to look at outside of just the global feel of what's going on in the market. But the one thing that I see that is a trend that doesn't seem to be going anywhere but up is the volume of shirts being printed every year. There's no doubt more cotton is being converted to garments that are being printed. More garments that are being made are being printed today than there were last year. And I don't think that trend is doing anything but continuing to go up. Whether you're on the local level, you've got a manual press, whether you're doing high volume production for the brands or the retailers, whether you're doing ad specialties for your region, more and more and more printing. There are more printing machines being sold today than ever before. So it's a trend that, for me, I like to see because it means we're in a healthy industry. That sector continues to grow. I've got one more friend here that hopefully he'll come up and say a few words. Lon Winters is a printer in the U.S., but he's also a consultant that travels around the world, helping print factories change the way they do things inside their facilities, and hopefully he'll come up and give us a few words about what he sees as well.
Test, am I on? Okay. I'm good. I'm good friends with these guys over the years. Probably my insight may be more U.S. based. I do a little traveling around the world myself, not as much as these guys by any stretch. And Dave's right, the plastisol is still pretty big in the U.S., and we're kind of slow to learn, to put it quite mildly. The trend for a non-PVC solution continues to move that direction, but overall, the attendees at a trade show like this in the U.S. are a little slow to move. They don't even realize through legislation we've pulled the phthalates out of most of our plastisol inks, and the product is different today than it was just a few years ago. While it's slow, it does feel like that's the trend. And there are other solutions besides water, and a lot of the manufacturers continue to try to develop those solutions from, we call them acrysols, acrylic-based plastisol substitutes, and other solutions that may be a combination of those for some of our dimensional techniques and textures and things like that, that will continue to evolve worldwide as well for PVC, non-PVC solutions that kind of track and follow the big brands of the world. One thing that I'd point out as far as technique and overall looks and feels, the thing that I think has become interesting is that many of the techniques or looks and feels, Mark and I were going through some of his prints just yesterday. We revisit things from years past, decades past, seasons past, and really I think we're going to see that the change in the customer's expectations be more consistent. We have many more seasons now where we used to maybe reintroduce something from 2, 3, 4 years ago. We're reintroducing things on almost in every other season. Today foil is in, tomorrow foil is out. The next season distress foil is in, the next season foil is out. If you do anything with rhinestones, you know this. I mean, half of us in the audience would say rhinestones are in, the other half might say rhinestones are out. It really cycles a lot faster than it ever has. So being up and understanding what's available from the product marketplace and what you can provide for your customers is ever more important than it's ever been, as far as being able to show them something that maybe they haven't seen recently. Whether it's new or not may be debatable, but we have to cycle a lot faster than we used to. That'd be kind of my comments on that. Let Dave finish it up here.
And I think finally what I'd like to say is, if you are a printer in the printing world, stay connected with your suppliers. You know, from the supply side, so many innovations are taking place in the ink. You know, ink, as I had said earlier, and as my buddies have said, you know, ink didn't change for decades. You know, water-based was for white garments and plastisol was for t-shirts. Now, the variety of inks that are being made and the advancement that's taking place with these inks is changing the way we design goods, the way we design art, the way we print art. So I would encourage you to really get invested with your supply chain. You know, the people that supply you mesh, you know, inks, emulsions, because it's changing on a regular basis. And, you know, lastly, again, if you have any comments or questions, you know, we travel a lot, we see a lot of things, we you know, we're here if you have any questions. So I'd open the floor for that as well if you have them. Otherwise, thank you for the time, and hope you enjoy the show.